Tonight, a journey into the convoluted twists and turns of Ken Russell's 1967 spy thriller, That Billion-Dollar Brain, based on the novel by Lynn Dayton, starring Michael Caine as that popular anti-hero of the Ipcrest file, Harry Palmer. And with Karl Malden as a cunning, clever espionage agent trapped in the computer complex of a militant Texan preparing to launch an attack on a Soviet nation. My guest tonight is a clever, cunning fellow himself, an actor of Yugoslavian descent named Karl Malden. So brace yourself for a taut spy adventure and prepare to meet one of Hollywood's leading character actors as we wind our way through the streets of San Francisco and other byways in the career of Karl Malden, as Creature Features proudly presents An Evening with Karl Malden. Don't leave home without it. Alec Norse haunting jazz score for A Streetcar Named Desire. A fitting motif tonight as we examine the career of an actor who won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in that 1951 Elia Kazan feature. Karl Malden, born Mladen Sekulovic in Gary, Indiana, 66 years ago, to a father of Yugoslavian background. He was an enthusiast about music and theater, and he always told Karl, "He who sings doesn't have any bad thoughts." Well, Karl didn't become a singer, but he did strike it big on the Broadway stage in Golden Boy in 1938. His other plays included All My Sons and Desire Under the Elms. He learned from the very best of them, Paul Muni, Sylvia Sidney, and the movies beckoned to him in 1948, and in just 3 years he was an Oscar winner for his role of Harold Mitchell in Streetcar under Elia Kazan's direction. His career as a character actor was launched, and he remained under contract to Warner Brothers from 1952 until 1961, making every conceivable kind of film. In Ruby Gentry, he was a Carolina widower who married cold-blooded Jennifer Jones. And in Baby Doll, he married the wanton Carol Baker, who would rather dally with Eli Wallach. In 1955, another tour de force, again under Elia Kazan's direction, and again opposite Marlon Brando, this time as Father Barry in On the Waterfront. His third film with Brando was One-Eyed Jacks, and he explored new territory as a sadistic lawman. He became the man you'll love to hate. Now in Gypsy, the biography of Gypsy Rose Lee, Karl sang and danced for the first time, and he wasn't half bad. Back to villainy in Nevada Smith and a lighthearted touch of larceny when he portrayed a thief in Hotel. More villainy as a spy in the film we're showing you tonight, Billion-Dollar Brain. Note these characterizations that are never quite black and white, but grayed with the Malden method, subtle touches of characterization. Now, if you happen to watch American television during the years 1972 to 1977, you might have seen a program introduced something like this.
San Francisco, a Quinn Martin production, starring Karl Malden. Also starring Michael Douglas.
For 4 seasons, Malden portrayed Lieutenant Mike Stone of the San Francisco Homicide Division. Shot entirely on location with the most up-to-date equipment, Streets turned Malden into a television star and San Francisco into a new booming tourist attraction. In '76, Malden grew tired of the rigors of shooting 6 hours a week, 18 hours a day, and he was disgruntled with the indifferent way Quinn Martin had replaced his co-star Michael Douglas with Richard Hatch. So Karl bowed out. Since then, he's portrayed Captain Disco Troop in Captains Courageous. And here's another seaman's role, as ailing Wilbur Hubbard in Irwin Allen's Beyond the Poseidon Adventure, a film that sank very quickly. And only last year, he co-starred with Henry Fonda in Meteor, a big-budgeted science fiction extravaganza. Well, Streets of San Francisco premieres here on Channel 2 on Monday night at 6 o'clock and will be shown Monday through Friday thereafter. I think there are almost 110 episodes, and you'll be seeing all of those here on Channel 2. A little bit later, I'll be back with Karl Malden to talk about his film and television career. Let's see, we have some footage of Karl working as a clown, and you're going to see Karl and I working together. That's right, I was a co-star in one of the episodes. And we have the only existing footage of how to make up Karl Malden's nose. What more could you ask for during an evening with Karl Malden? The city by the bay, sweltering in the heat, shivering in the fog that drifted across the Golden Gate. It didn't matter to Lieutenant Mike Stone of the San Francisco PD. It was his beat. He loved it and the people. Mike Stone was a hard-working, dedicated cop who fought the good fight from 1972 to 1977 in ABC's Streets of San Francisco. As TV cops go, Mike might have just been another plainclothesman in pursuit of lawbreakers, but Karl Malden brought to the character compassion and humor. Even when the writing was without depth, Karl always gave his character depth. Karl, was it difficult keeping Mike Stone alive for those 4 years?
It certainly was.
How did you do it week after week?
Well, you always found something that fascinated you about every script. You had to. There were moments, times that was hard, and other times I've never ran in anything for 5 years in all my life. It only took me 4 years to get through high school, and this is the longest I've ever been in anything. And the only thing is that if you have pride in what you're doing, and I've always felt that the work that I'm doing at the moment gets my next job, so you just can't let yourself run down or say it's not worth it. There's always something worthwhile doing, and this was it.
You know, every time I came out to the set to watch you work, you always knew your lines, and you had this magical ability to bring up your energy when that camera rolled. It was like 2 different Karl Maldens, one walking around the set getting ready, and suddenly when that camera light went on, you were like a different person. Are you aware of this constant energy factor?
It took me a while to work on it. When I first made films, I would go home and be exhausted at the end of the day because of keeping that tension up between takes. And you do 4, 5, 6 takes, and it's awful difficult. Mm-hmm. But you do learn to relax between takes, sit down, discuss other things, and the minute they say we're going to be ready, start to concentrate on what you're doing, and in other words, say, goose yourself up for that moment.
Now, Karl, I know that when Streets went off the air, you were a little tired of television. Hurry up and shoot it. But when you look back at the shows, they really seem to hold up well. Have you seen some of the shows? How do you feel about the series now?
I've seen some. I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen some. And I'm proud of them. I really am. Compared to some of the things I'm seeing today, we did some pretty good stuff, I thought. Excellent. The integrity is there. Quinn Martin spent a lot of money to put it on the screen, and I think it shows it.
One of the things about Streets, it was never faked. I mean, you were always in San Francisco. It was all shot here. There was none of that going...
We only had one set. There was only one set, and that was the homicide office. That was the only set we had. Other than that, San Francisco opened its hearts to us, and it's something that I'll never forget, and I certainly appreciate, because we went into many homes, many offices, including the mayor's office, the morgue, headquarters, police station, and everyone was grateful to see us. We had fun while we were there, and when we left, we tried to leave a good image behind us, and I think we succeeded.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people strongly identified you with Mike Stone. In fact, there was that confusion between illusion and reality. There was one time you were telling me that someone came up to you and said somebody had just stole a lady's purse.
That's true.
Chase after him. They expected you to fulfill your function as a lawman.
That's true. Right there in front of the Huntington Hotel, I was outside at about 7:45, and a man came running up and said, she went that way, or he went that way, around the corner. And I said, who? The guy that took the purse off the trolley car. And I said, well, I have to go to work. I have to be at work in about 15 minutes. They're picking me up. I won't be up. He said, no, he went that way. He saw me get into a car, and he says, is that the kind of money I'm paying to protect myself? It's true. It really happened.
Karl, I think you've admitted that one of the reasons you came to television in 1972 is that your film career had started to flag a little bit. And Quinn Martin had made you this offer that you really couldn't refuse. And you also felt that he was a prestigious producer and therefore stood behind his product.
That's true. Everything you said is true. And one of the main reasons, you're right, my film career was beginning to deteriorate, really fall down. They were giving me smaller parts in terrible films. And when Quinn offered, the first thing Quinn said is, now he's offered me 2 other shows before. And I said, I don't want to do them, Quinn. I don't want to do TV. And he said, now don't say no until I finish my spiel. And I says, what is it? He said, I have a deal with ABC, no pilot, and 26 weeks guaranteed. I said, I'm listening.
That was an offer you couldn't refuse.
I felt it was a year's work. And to be honest with you, I didn't think it was going to last just a year, and that was it.
It caught on and did very well. Karl, one of the best Streets of San Francisco shows was one that you created the idea for, The Clown of Death. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, while I was here, I found out that every year San Francisco has a circus at the Cow Palace for, is it orphan children or some kind of children organization. And I thought it would be wonderful if we could do a show when they were here. And they finally figured out a show, and the last year we did one. And also, selfishly, I always wanted to be in a circus, do something in a circus. Well, so with this nose of mine, they said, you got to be the clown. Well, and I said, swell, you save money on nose putty.
We dug up the old print from that, and we're going to show you Karl Malden's nose as it's being made up. Let's look at that right now.
I didn't know you took that.
Going in as a target. These murders were all carefully planned, except for Red's. And I tell you, that killer got frightened. He thought that Red knew something. Well, I'm just going to crowd him a little bit and give him some bait and hope he takes it.
What if he doesn't run?
There is no danger, I'm telling you.
Of course, the other fellow we saw there was your co-star, Michael Douglas. Ironically, you had helped his father, Kirk, back in the 40s when he was starting out as an actor.
That's true.
And you ended up also working
Kirk
with
was like my son in the show, and when he left, it wasn't anything to do with the Hatch or anything. It was just that we were so warm, the two of us, Michael and I, and it was like family. And when a new man stepped in, he was a good actor and everything he did was right, but somehow that feeling just wasn't there.
Karl, we have to get back to $1 Million Brain, but we'll be back in just a short while, and we'll continue our conversation with Karl Malden about the streets of San Francisco, and we're also going to discuss many of the films that he has starred in, so stay with us. These are some of the motion pictures Karl Malden has appeared in since working in Elia Kazan's Boomerang in 1948. His career has been rich and varied, and like every actor, he's done his share of turkeys, and his career has had its ups and downs. His forays into television include the long-running Streets of San Francisco, which premieres here on Channel 2 Monday at 6 p.m. And earlier this year, you saw him in the short-lived Skag, the story of a steelworker trying to adjust his traditional family life to today's changing climate. Karl, you once remarked that there's no perfection in film. There are only individual sensational moments, and that makes it all worthwhile. What have been some of the individual sensational moments for you as a film actor?
Well, right offhand, I'm thinking of a film that I wasn't in, that Marlon was in and took a great gamble to do, a film called The Last Tango. And there was a moment in there where he's in the dance hall just before he starts dancing the tango, which I thought was spectacular. The rest of the film was Marlon's way of doing things, but that moment was absolutely brilliant. I think there was a moment that George C. Scott had in Patton. The very first moment when he gets out in front of the flag and starts giving that lecture, the speech to the boys going overseas, brilliant moment. And I think the form that films takes, the way that it takes 6 months to make or 3 months to make, and the days in between, you don't get a run on something, you have to do it over and over. As I said before, I think you're lucky if you have 2 or 3 brilliant moments in a film. And I'm trying to think of...
Perhaps 2 or 3 brilliant moments in a career.
In a career, absolutely. Yeah. I think that in Cincinnati Kid, the last card game between Eddie G. Robinson and Steve McQueen was a brilliant moment. Not much dialogue. As a matter of fact, no dialogue at all, except the cards, the money, the looks. Brilliant moment. Streetcar Named Desire. I felt that the moment when Stella comes from the apartment up above down into Marlon's arms when he calls her, the long screaming, "Stella, Stella," brilliant moment. And these are the moments when you go to see a film, and a film is 2 hours long, and if you can get 10, 15 minutes of that kind of filmmaking, I think you've achieved something.
Karl, a lot of the films that you've done, or so you've said, you did them because of the co-star. You wanted to work with a particular person.
That's true.
Like Robinson.
That's true.
Can you give us a few examples of that?
Yes, I worked with Betty Davis in a film where she played twins.
Oh, Dead Ringer.
Dead Ringer.
Yes, we've had that on Channel 2. Yes.
I wanted to work with Betty Davis. I worked with Roz Russell in Gypsy. I'd never sung and danced before, but I wanted to be with her. I worked with Claudette Colbert. These are all people who were big stars when I was struggling.
Didn't you do Cheyenne Autumn just to work with John Ford?
That's right, I did. As a matter of fact, I asked my friend Dick Widmark to get me in the film because I wanted to work with John Ford, and it was not the last, but the next to the last picture he ever made. So I was pretty lucky there. The Cincinnati Kid again with Eddie G. Robinson, that was an accident. The original player that was going to do that part that Eddie played was Spencer Tracy. And I wanted to work in a film with Spencer. And the last week he backed out, and Eddie Robinson came in, so it was just as good for me.
Karl, we think of you as Mike Stone, therefore we have this heroic image of you, and sometimes we forget that you've played some very excellent heavies. One-Eyed Jacks opposite Marlon Brando, The Hanging Tree, Nevada Smith.
But John, you know, to me there's no such thing as a heavy. There's no man who gets up in the morning and says, I'm going to be mean. I'm going to be the meanest man in the world. There's no such thing. I feel that doing something that you call a heavy or something against the grain, circumstances. You get a man in a certain corner and he'll do something to protect himself. And whenever I play a heavy, I always say to myself, they've got me in that corner. I've got to do something to protect myself. And what I do is the thing that makes him a heavy. But I don't go out and say, I'm going to be mean here. And I think for that reason, my heavies, if I can say so, are never really black.
I brought that out earlier. I call it the Malden method, where you try to gray the areas so it's not all black.
Absolutely. I feel that there must be a lot of humor, especially the more villainous things he does, the more humorous you try to make him when you can.
Speaking of humor, Carl, I'd like to lighten the mood here for just a moment. You know, you and I worked together in a Streets of San Francisco episode. I don't know if you remember it or not. It was the last show shot in San Francisco just before Christmas of
It was my idea.
1976.
I said, you want to act?
That's right.
And you said,
haven't
yes.
forgotten
I says,
me after
come
all.
on.
Okay.
You've got that clip?
We've got that clip.
All right, let's see
Let's
it.
take a look at that right now.
Here you go, Charlie.
Hanley, you happen to know where Gonzalez is hiding out?
I might. Why?
Well, Boggs is making a lot of phone calls to stoolies. He's looking for him.
Uh-huh.
So I think you ought to alert Gonzalez. I think you ought to give him some...
There he is. There you are. Take a look. Take a look. There you are.
It's too close to the
They put a circle around you, too.
Spider can't be hiding out and working for you at the same time.
That's precisely what he is doing. Now, his friends know how to get...
There he
in touch
is.
with him. He's making all the
There
right
he
moves.
is, boy.
But if that guy from Tucson...
Way
catches
back,
a
I
hint of
put
a
you.
profit,
Way back there. I want you to know that.
Rational state of mind. What if he gets the Spider first?
He won't.
Well, don't kid yourself. Boggs knows his way around.
All right, it's one of the risks we have to take.
Well, Carl, that was my debut as a television actor. Now you see what I've gone on to become.
I see
And
that.
it's all your fault.
Lucky you.
Okay, we have to go back to the billion-dollar brain, but I still want to talk to Carl a little bit more about the Streets of San Francisco and his film career, so stick around, Carl. This isn't over yet. Well, we've dug up one of the youthful indiscretions of Karl Malden's career, a clip from a film called Phantom of the Rue Morgue, and we'll be right back with that clip, I hope. Carl, you were at Warner Brothers for over 10 years, and sometimes you had to do pictures that were assignments. And in 53 or 54, you got involved in Phantom of the Rue Morgue. Now, how is it that an Academy Award-winning actor gets an assignment to play a mad doctor?
Very easily. You sign a contract, you can't get out of it.
And you do it or else?
You do it or else, sure. Or you go on suspension, which I don't believe in anyway. You commit yourself to something, you go ahead and you do it. But I can tell you something about that film. When you see it, you'll see an ape in it, I think. The Murder of the Rue Morgue, a very brilliant ape. And it took the actors, we only played ourselves, one person, while the ape was played by three different people.
Three people?
Three different people. One played the close-up work, another one did the walking, and the third person did the trapeze work. So it took three people to play the ape while we just played ourselves.
Well, Suzanne Toner over at Channel 44 at KBHK-TV here in San Francisco lent me a print of Phantom of the Rue Morgue, and we've dug up a scene where you're about to mesmerize this gorilla. I don't know which one of the three it was, but let's take a look right now.
You could learn a lot from her, Jacques. No wonder he hates you. He knows you're afraid. Go up there. Go up there. Smell of fear. Reek of it. But her, Jacques. Her, did you watch her? Stop me! Stop me! Watch. Again, you can thank me for saving you, Jacques.
Three actors to play one gorilla.
That's right. Did you see those eyes?
Oh, boy.
Buddy.
It took special talent in those close-up
That's right.
shots. Carl, you've done some other psycho-type films. Count of Nine Tails with Dario Argento, the Italian director.
Yes.
You said that was a very exciting experience.
It wasn't exciting. He's an exciting young man and sometimes gets way out somewhere, which you can't figure out, but it's his film and you do it his way. But I played a wonderful part in a blind newspaper man who did crossword puzzles. He made it the crossword puzzles for the papers, and the way they figured it out, it was just brilliant. Just a wonderful day, and I enjoyed playing the part.
But we had his Deep Red on the show just 2 or 3 weeks ago.
I haven't seen that one.
Audience response was overwhelming.
It was?
Yes, his films are very offbeat.
They are, way out somewhere.
You also did a film with Betty Davis called Dead Ringer.
That's right.
I think we've shown that here on Creature Features in the past. Are there any others?
Twins.
Any others in that genre that you've done?
Not that I can think of right now, no.
Yeah. Well, Carl, Streets of San Francisco begins here on Channel 2 this coming Monday night at 6 o'clock, and will be shown every Monday through Friday until they're out of episodes or into reruns. As I said, there's about 109 episodes, so it's going to run for quite a while. And I want to thank you very much for coming up to San Francisco to do Creature Features, and I wish you... Oh, tell me, before you leave, I would like to know, what's your next project? What are you currently
Well,
doing?
I'm going to do a film for CBS that, believe it or not, Alex Karras is producing, the great Detroit tackle. And how he became a producer, I don't know, but you have to ask him someday when you get him up here. But it's about a newspaper man, the First Amendment, and how he gets information, promises not to divulge it, and he puts it in the paper, and they go to court, and because he won't tell who his informant is, he goes to jail, and the person who commits the crime goes free, which is happening quite a bit today in our country.
Yes, it is. What's the working title for the film?
Word of Honor.
Word of Honor. Okay, well, we'll look for that.
Good.
Okay, I want to again thank Suzanne Toner from Channel 44 for providing Phantom of the Rue Morgue, a delightful moment here on Creature Features. And I'll be back next week with a Boris Karloff film called Die, Monster, Die. And the following week, Comedy of Terrors, also with Karloff, and one of my favorite, Peter Lorre. So join us then. And don't forget, Streets of San Francisco starting Monday at 6 o'clock with Karl Malden. Thank you.